Okay. I like this drill a lot because it kind of covers a lot of things that you can see, and if the target line was somewhere in that vicinity, then first thing we're doing is checking to see if we've got that club pointing basically at the target line. And that way when you get back here and check it, you can... Yeah, sure, you bet. Yeah, I've got a website on there. Yep, perfect. Yeah, thanks. But that should point down to there, so you just get a little bit of a twist in your hands there. Thank you. And then the next checkpoint is to come down to impact. The next checkpoint is to see if the club face was relatively parallel with your left arm. So you made me look good. You look so impressive there. The third checkpoint is to come down to impact. And when you first started doing that, your shoulders were pointing way the heck over here. So we want to be very passive with the shoulders on the downswing. And I guess that's really part of the pivot drill. You'll see when we look at the pivot drill that pivot can get quieter with the shoulders. But then we're just checking to see that you got the left wrist nice and flat at impact. Shoulders are square. And then as you go through just 2 or 3 feet, you can check and see if that left arm is foldable, but it's not chicken wing, so obviously it did. And then I like to see that left wrist stay flat all the way through. You won't see that a lot on the tour because those guys are trying to avoid the hook, but if you're good at impact and just fold it up, you're good. They kind of let this ease a little bit to kind of keep it from flipping over. But I like to, we'll end up hitting it right if we don't have that left wrist fairly flat through the ball. But everything kind of evolves, you know. You can't really, that's why I don't like methods per se, because you don't know how somebody's going to fit into that. There's a guy by the name of Fred Griffin in Orlando that teaches at Cypress. What's the name of the place? Grand Cypress over there in Orlando, and a real good teacher. But he used to have a program back in the early '80s that was a composite of all the PGA pros, and that's like saying, you know, you're supposed to have 2.2 kids, you know, so you got to get rid of that third kid and donate him somewhere to get down to make the odds work out better for 2.2. So it's just everybody's going to be a little bit different. So I think you just have to kind of work with what you need. So there you can see a little bit of left forearm showing, one more square. And then we started off with little tiny swings, and your shoulders were a little too involved in these in the beginning. So there's a really nice backswing. Club face is still a little bit closed, but we're not worried about that as long as we come through properly with more arms and belt buckle. But see, as we get here to impact, shoulders are a little bit opening up. And that was after you got rid of the pull. But you can see that pull's kind of lurking in there. So we want the shoulders to stay square, and your shoulders have almost opened up as much as the hips. And it should be where the hips have opened up a lot more than the shoulders. But good setup position here. You got to improve lean here. This is still on the small one. I just love these 3-to-3s because if you're not connecting the dots here, you got problems for the rest of it. So there goes back the quarter, and that's good. And then you can just see how the hands are leading so much more. So it just gets you into such a better position. At the very least, it interrupts your old habits and kind of lets you install the new ones. Where are we here? Oh man, it took a lot of video. I got both of these on here, don't I? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I got the whole front view on this one. I'm trying to find it. It's right there in front of me. But this is our before picture, and you can see how it gets such good positions on these smaller swings. So I mean, how can you not want to practice that, you know, compared to this? Because your body's going to start not knowing what this is all about, especially if you start off the first few swings doing a couple 3-to-3s, couple quarter-to-quarters, couple half-to-quarters, and checking all those checkpoints along the way. It's really minimal thinking after you got the framework in your head. The only thing you can pick on here is that left arm needs to rotate just a little bit more. So you can actually hit golf balls with just your left arm and feel like you're just shaking hands out here. Again, simple concept, but that's the more normal thing for people to do. And with your old swing, you learn just from self-preservation, I guess would be the best way to describe it, that as you're coming through, you needed that left elbow out a little bit to keep it from getting hurt. Because if it rotated over and everything was working on the path that it was working on before, it would have caused some damage. So that's the only thing you can pick on, is that left arm needs to rotate. But it's still a darn sight better than where it is here. Isn't that amazing what a difference that look is? Like, who is that masked man? And then you can see the pivot we hadn't talked about. See, that's a little bit too much lateral, and if you move too much lateral, you can't move enough rotary. So it's all tied into that same thing. So not to add to your cerebral burden here, but because you don't want to think about the pivot and the swing at the same time. You can't. I don't think anybody can go in two different directions. It's just too difficult. You're like thinking in French and Italian at the same time. You can't really go there. But that looks good. Then this peg leg is really good because you can see that as we look at this front view here, there's a tendency to move a little bit too much with the head. But the head's not really in control of how the head moves. It's the neck muscles, and they're controlled by the shoulders. So when your head moves too much, it's because your shoulders moving too much lateral and not enough rotary. So if we were to apply our rules here on the pivot, we want to have this stay the same, and we want to have about a 4-inch gap on the left side. You're leaning a little bit into that left side, which is fine for a short wedge anyway. But we really shouldn't get through that line there, because that's the chair on your left-hand side. So for this little swing, you should just be turning along that right side. This is not fair in the least, since we've never even talked about the pivot at this point. But you can see how you did a good job of turning back. Your head was rather quiet. It wanted to actually go a little bit this way. So if this stays onto the chair, then it basically turns. But now watch on the through swing. Pretty good lateral motion. Now the head got a little bit too far forward. The lower body got a little bit too far out in front, but not bad. And then as you get through the ball, the head's going to move on forward as well. That's not bad. Maybe a little bit too much lateral, but not bad at all. Good transfer of weight. That part's good. Now we should be going up to a little bigger swing here. Maybe a half to quarter, I think, or just another quarter, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, still the quarter. I think we already looked at this one. No, that actually may have been the one that you did a little too much shoulders. Yeah, shoulders got a little overactive, and see how they kind of moved across, and that brought you into the hosel. Sorry, didn't mean to actually put that one on there. but still, we know that if you have that problem, or you have contact or direction problems, it's usually because the shoulders got too active. And that's what I love about this drill. This little drill kind of keeps you quiet. Watch how steady your head stays, because the shoulders can't do anything but the right thing. You can still take the swing back with the shoulders, but you really can't come through with the shoulders at all. So very good backswing. That's what it should look like. Just a very quiet head, because the shoulders take you back. Hips respond to the rotation, but there's not much rotation, so not much response. And then the lower body turns you through. Now that is excellent right there. Great body action. So that peg leg Pete, my dad used to call that. It's just a great drill, because it really quiets you down. I had a guy one time who came out, and he had a real problem. His body just moved all over the place. He just had a lot of spatial problems with his body. And he came out one day, and he was playing with the peg leg all the time. It was like, it wasn't that pronounced, but it was a little peg leg. And he came out one day and he says, "I got to figure it out." And I said, "Well, let me see." And so he just got it there and struck the ball perfectly, no problems with his body moving the wrong way. And I said, "Wow, how'd you do that?" And I said, "You're not using the peg leg." And he goes, "No, I'm still using it." He says, "I'm just barely using it." So he said, "You could probably put a credit card under my right heel." But it was just sort of a fake peg leg, but it was enough to get him the feel of doing the right thing. But what a super drill to quiet you down, as you can see. And then watch from this side, you'll see the same good results here. Very little unnecessary movement. And if the shoulders only respond, initiating the backswing, but they only respond on the downswing, then it makes it really easy to get a good impact position. That's automatically going to come from the inside. Now you got your hips are doing more turning than the shoulders. Well, that's excellent. See how much shaft you can see out here? So when you watch somebody coming through the ball on a, I don't have a lot of people doing wedges, but I got me doing a wedge, a pitch shot. Watch how it's going to look very similar. Let me back you up here. You're going to have a lot more shaft showing than usual. There, your hands are right in front of your belt buckle and a lot of shaft showing. Watch how similar that is to what I'm doing. Very similar. I'm purposely trying to hit a high shot, so I'm leaving the face pointing to the sky for that reason. And then if you watch Seve Ballesteros, I don't know if we've looked at this or not. I think we may have touched on this before, but it's the same thing. So you look very similar. You know, the hands are in front of the belt buckle and turn of the body's just the same. So it's a good drill to kind of get you in the right spot. Just quiet your shoulders. And this ought to be moving up to a little longer swing. It's funny, when people have talked about a steady head, most people think it's the head, but it's really the shoulders. There's really good backswing position. This is when you flipped into a longer swing after I showed you that drill, but that was fine. And then as you do the longer swing, some of the old habits are going to creep back in. So it's like, dang, where'd that come from? Well, there just hadn't been enough of the 3-foot swings and the quarter swings to get this train to do the right thing coming through the ball. Pretty soon you won't have to even think about that, because thinking about it is detrimental to the shot anyway. It's just a matter of doing those drills, and then those drills just bring you into. So it's similar to my brother explaining. My brother was a piano player, and he was really good on musical instruments. He was good at everything. He was naturally talented at everything he did. The bomb, but he had great musical ability. And I was asking about the scales one day, and he says, just like Dad teaching you the scales of golf or the lengths of the swing. And so it made a lot of sense to me that it really got you kind of tied in at that point. But that still looks better than the full swing. I should be able to see a little bit more left forearm. Or did I go back into the beginning swings here? No, I couldn't have, because we got the pivot coming up. Yeah, no, so it's a little bit more close with the shoulders. No, this is the new stuff. My bad, not noticing that. Very nice backswing. There's your half. It really looks good. Beautiful path coming in. And you can see how much better the club face looks back. It's much more neutral just because of the grip. Now all we got to do is get a little bit more release of that right side coming through. But how similar does that look to when you were doing the peg leg? That's awesome. So these things kind of feed on each other. That looks really good. And the ball can't get much better than that. Certainly wouldn't want to move more than that much, and that's a tendency right now, which is why I brought up the pivot drill, because you get those arms looking really good, and you still have a lot of inconsistency from too much lateral. So a little too much lateral, but how about that with the hands leading like that? And again, just needs a little bit more rotation with that left arm, just a touch more coming through. And I like this gate post drill. Doing this little gate post drill really allows you to free up your lower body. And you can put your hand on a desk at work while you're on a boring conference call and do this drill. And it automatically freezes the shoulders, but what at first doesn't come natural is the realization that you can let your lower body release. And it's a good flexibility drill, because you should be able to, and you probably can, but you should be able to get your hips turned all the way through, you know, just as you're doing that. You know, it's just that way. You don't need that much flexibility, but if you have that much flexibility, then you'll probably rule out hip problems. But that looks great. See how much more the hips have turned than the shoulders. That looks really nice. And then this one I think was, yeah, that was the first one. That didn't quite release as much. I guess I can move down that way. Okay, yeah, the pivot drill. Sorry, I was paying attention to what's going on around me. All right, so the pivot drill, the concept is just that we're turning around the spine. I call that a prayer drill in here. Yeah, here we go. So with the spine on an angle like that, and this measured here on the right, you'll see I'm just basically turning along that imaginary chair on the right-hand side. And so the spine just stays right there, and everything in front turns to the right. So open up some space on the left side. Do that again. Oops. Start that over again. If you notice this line on the left side, which is, I'm leaning to the left a little bit there, watch this space open up as I turn back. So you can see everything in the front turns to the right, and everything turns right back through without much lateral. I'm just getting enough rotary. And so the idea behind that is the chairs, and it really allows you to quantify it. So you can see from this side, I'll basically stay on that chair that's behind me as I turn back and turn through till the end of the swing when it pulls you away from it just a little bit. Chair touching on the right hand side, and then a little bit of space on the left in order to turn away. 3 or 4 fingers there. Everything turns back. And not a lot of head movement, as you can see. The head's going to move about half a head. As I turn back, about half my head will move into that right side. So the center of the head was here, and now it's over here, so it's about half a head. And then as you move back through impact, the head should stay fairly steady until the very end of the swing, right after impact. Of course, you're releasing your head, takes the strain off the spine. But that's the thing you'll notice when you do this in front of the mirror. The first thing you want to get a little bit more angle, which you're getting ready to do. A little bit more lean. And then you see how the head moves a little too much laterally there. So you want to turn into the chair. So picture this chair kind of going all the way up, and you're just moving a little bit too lateral into the chair. That's why a lot of times people hold you by the head just to, but it's really more of the shoulder thing. Your shoulders just need to turn. They don't need to move that much laterally. They just need to rotate. And the same thing on the through swing, just a little aggressive here. But it's still, even with that, it still keeps you in a good spot with the lower part of the spine. So there's the tilt. Watch when we've got this. Perfect angle there. And if you're turning back around the spine, then your head will just move, like I said, about a half a head or 3/4 of a head in this case. And that's not bad. Everything turns back. Maybe a tiny little bit extra head, but that's okay. Really good. And then coming through, now you see that head moves a little bit forward, so there's a little bit of shoulder influence there. But that'll get better and better as you do that. So if you're looking in the mirror and trying to keep your head fairly steady through the ball, that'll be good. And those back to the beginning.